Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2. So, let's just get back to where we were at one point. It was back here.
All we know
Let's
is
go.
that she became something different.
Yes?
Something with actual power. Some legends say she joined the Thieves Guild in order to promote the murder of individuals for money, and when that didn't work,
Real quickly, he said she became something of true power. Okay. Real quickly, if you watched part 1, she technically killed a divine. Because she killed a child with, let me find it real quickly. Where is it? Said to have killed her child, who had...
it's very interesting to note that one of the children is said to have been a being of divine and frightening power.
So if that was a being of divine and frightening power, isn't she already technically insanely strong? Like, wouldn't that already make her insanely strong?
No, because she's killed a divine before it rose to power.
That is true.
All we know is that she became something different. Something with actual power. Some legends say she joined the Thieves Guild in order to promote the murder of individuals for money, and when that didn't work out, she left to
Well, of course that wouldn't work out because they don't kill for money, they steal, and then sell that for money. Or they just steal money. They're
That's
thieves.
the Thieves Guild.
Thieves Guild. Not murdering people for Gold Guild or Mercenaries Guild.
create her own guild. Other legends say that she was part of
One might even call them a Dark Brotherhood.
the Morag Tong,
Sound familiar?
eventually taking members off the organization to make their own guild, where they would be paid for any kind of murder instead of just political murders. Some other people even claim that she is seen as the spirit of a Redguard woman wandering the world. In Morrowind, the leader of the Dark Brotherhood in the Third Era even claimed to have been the Night Mother at one point, and most folk even go as far as to claim that she is the lucky old lady. Many of
Real quickly, this is why we're looking at this video, because if one claimed to be the lucky old lady, here's what I want to know, because there's a bunch of things. There's considered a ghost in Oblivion, a skeleton hidden somewhere in Oblivion, a severed head, which, real quickly, how can there be a severed head, which would have had a skull in it, but also a skeleton with a skull on it? And then how can there be someone alive at the same time who is claiming to be her? And then, later on, how can there still be a skeleton, so no flesh at all on it, hidden in a crypt that no one knows exists, all of a sudden, years later, be a rotten corpse in
That's
a
why
snowy
we
wasteland?
have theories that we'll look into more in another video about who that person with just the skull was.
Yeah, and
like, was it a maid or was it
because
a family member? Or,
we believe, because
you don't know.
In Skyrim, usually to have more than... We all know that having one child, most kids are in the orphanage because their parents can't pay for them. So in Oblivion, where money and that was even more scarce, if you were to have 5 children, you'd have to be extremely wealthy. Almost as wealthy as a noble or someone inside the castle. Maybe even the emperor's wife or something. So our theory is it was either when she got one of her loyal maids who made a deal and said that she'd protect the Night Mother with her life, and then the Night Mother used that and said, well, now you have to protect my life. Or she used members in the Morag Tong to serve her and cover up her tracks. So, 2 of them to kill themselves.
No, because the Morag Tong don't believe in the Night Mother. They'd probably do anything they could to disrespect the Night Mother.
Yes, but then again, in that video, it did say that she was pulling members from the Morag Tong to join her cause. I'll be back. I'm just grabbing a charger. So, guys, our computer's charging again. But the reason we're doing this is because one of the theories is that some of the members that she pulled from the Morag Tong to create the Dark Brotherhood or her own guild were used to cover her tracks. So, one would quit their life as an assassin and say that they were the lucky old lady, making sure they were a dark elf, and then she'd find 2 other dark elves and get them to kill themselves and skin themselves, one of them just cutting their head off and waiting for it to rot, and one killing himself and then letting the Night Mother skin him alive and, in a sense, desecrating his body.
Not alive. Kill himself.
Oh yeah, kill himself and her skinning him. That way, in a sense, desecrating his body and making a skeleton to hide with her kids.
Yeah,
So, in a sense, she's just covered her tracks as much as she can. And then the reason that she's so rotten is because she died when she was in her mid-60s.
She's pretty much been a corpse for the past 200 years.
Yeah. So, if she were to have died in the middle of the First Era, that would have meant she's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. Okay. Sorry guys, that was my older brother. He was just interrupting and just telling me to quiet him down, but...
And he's interrupting again!
So, again guys, brother interrupting, and he was just seeing what we were doing and seeing how we were doing it, but yeah. So, again, the reason that we think that she used those decoys was because she's only about 200 years old, which is well, at least 200 years old, and only around the 100-year mark, not really around a 1,000-year-old mark, because otherwise she'd be a lot skinnier, she'd be a lot more rotted. Her skin would have actually started going white and started falling off and just being desecrated. So she's only a few hundred years old, allowing her skin to rot, which is why her hair is so grey, but not white.
These legends and fables can be disproven, however, like, for example, the fact that the Dark Elf woman actually lived in the Second Era, while most of these legends originated in the First Era, or the fact that the story of the Lucky Old Lady never really talks about her having children, and ends with her living in peace to old age, which would be completely out of character with a person who would murder her own 5 children in order to appease a god of death. Her body is, however, found hidden beneath the Lucky Lady statue, where the sarcophaguses of her children and herself are being hidden. The tomb was destroyed by the elves during the Great War, but the bodies were spared.
Again.
Okay, so as you can see, there's all these dead bodies here.
And a giant...
And there's a body there, but how
could
there
think,
be
though, that
a skeleton? Like, how could that be the Night Mother's skeleton when up to 100 years later...
No, not up to 100 years later. Up to and over 100 years later.
Anyway, so when the listener comes along, how can he be talking to
a corpse with rotted skin on it?
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense.
So that means this must be someone else.
A decoy.
Yes.
the body of one of these children could have been the 10th god in the pantheon. An organization riddled with scandal and suspicion. A life lived behind the shadows, abiding by a strict code bound to you and those around you, and the worship of chaos itself. All for the sake of riches and cold-blooded murder. Such is the life of a Dark Brotherhood assassin.
So real quickly guys, this is going into the Dark Brotherhood. That's Babette, the little girl. She's a vampire who's lived for, 300 years. The lady behind her, that's Gabriella, I believe. Sorry guys, Immortal Horror just keeps reminding me that we've got low time, but the girl behind Babette, the little girl, is Gabriella. She's a dark elf, I believe an alchemist, or an enchanter. The guy off to the right is Arnbjorn, he's a werewolf, and that Argonian is a shadow scale.
We will get more into this in part 3. Please subscribe to our
channel and Immortal Horror X.G.T.L.
We'll see you all next time.